Hello everyone, this is Dr. Julia with Harmonious Living. I'm so glad that you joined me. So come on in and take a seat and make yourself comfortable. As a life coach, it is my goal to help you live a more harmonious life with purpose, passion, positivity, and power. In this season, I have 10 episodes of inspiration and wisdom. In order to receive the maximum benefit from this season, try to listen to the podcast in their entirety. One more thing, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review about the tips and practical advice given in this episode. If you need life coaching, please contact me. The information is in the description box. Today's episode is called The New Normal. Another way to describe what I'm talking about is societal norms. That is, what is considered acceptable in the way that you dress for work, when you go dining out, or at your place of worship. Society dictates how you address others. Either it's going to be by the title, the rank, first name, pronouns, etc. Society also dictates what time certain establishments open and close. A lot of what I just mentioned is dependent on your culture and your country. Every culture has its own traditions that are not usually observed by the dominant culture. Even though you may live in a city that's ethnically diverse, most people will assimilate into the dominant culture with language and dress. For others, their cultural traditions are observed at home among family and friends. Something else that is important to mention is that we live in a global society where everything we do is shared on an international stage. Most young people worldwide listen to the same music. Because English is the international language, it is sometimes hard to distinguish people from different cultures because they don't always have a distinctive accent. Now, when I scroll through Instagram or TikTok, I'm shocked to see young people from Eastern and Western Europe dancing to Afro beats. There are no more borders between countries when you start using the internet. Since social media and online dating apps are the norm, photos are more valuable in determining whether or not you would like to meet someone rather than their race. Employers and the U.S. government will insist that you identify your race, though. Your phenotype will not necessarily match your genotype, which has become evident with DNA testing. Those ethnic groups or races have almost become obsolete. In the U.S., I have never met anyone that is 99% of any race or ethnicity. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but I've never come across it at all. Have you noticed that on applications or in the census data, the list for race and ethnicity is getting longer and longer? They're finally beginning to catch up with what the rest of the world already knows. Now I'm going to give you some examples about the new normal. That is what society has been telling us lately, what is normal or acceptable. I always use fictional characters to illustrate real-life circumstances. And what I talk about, I know about. Maria Sanchester and her family are the first fictional characters I'm going to use to illustrate how the new normal or societal norms of the dominant culture clashes with your culture or other cultures. Maria was born in Mexico, but her parents immigrated to the United States when she was 6 years old. Her father, Fernando, was born in Panama, but worked in Mexico City as a chef for an international hotel chain. He considers himself to be a mestizo because he is of African, Spanish, and indigenous Indian descent. Fernando is proud of his brown skin, his hazel eyes, and his curly hair. After taking a popular DNA test he received in the mail, he was surprised to learn that he's also 12% Chinese, which is not unusual for people in Central America. Maria's mother, Sylvia, considers herself to be a Spanish person from Mexico, even though her DNA test revealed that she is also of Mayan, German, and Jewish ancestry. She prides herself for speaking pure Castellano, the Spanish spoken in Spain. Sylvia does not allow her 3 children to speak English at home. Her reasoning is that she doesn't want them to forget about their Mexican heritage and forget how to speak Castellano. Sylvia has never learned to speak fluent English and will only watch Spanish language television. Maria told her mother that it's not a big deal not liking traditional Mexican food, like mole, caprito, y menudo. She doesn't understand why her mother gets so upset about it. Maria's like her father and likes to try foods from other cultures. When she spends the day with her best friend, her mother's best friend teaches her how to cook some of their traditional meals like collard greens, baked macaroni and cheese, and sweet potato pie. Are you getting hungry yet? To appease her mother, Maria will make tacos for the family every Tuesday. I know it's an inside joke. She and her siblings laugh because her mother doesn't really know that Taco Tuesday, it's American as apple pie. Another tradition that is irritating to Maria is that her mother wants Maria to concentrate on finding a traditional Latin male to date and marry. Maria keeps telling her mother that getting married at 16 like she did in Mexico, that's not a normal thing to do in Frisco, Texas. Now that she's 18, her mother makes her feel like an old maid. And besides, Maria has told her mother repeatedly there are no traditional Latin males at her high school. Fernando, Maria's father, is not so traditional, and his upbringing, in Panama was quite different than his wife's childhood in Mexico. There was a big American influence in Panama when he was growing up because of all the military bases that run the country. Fernando has a few stipulations of his own. He has told his children that he would like for them to identify as Latin American. He wants them to use the manners he taught them by respecting adults and not to call them by their first name, and he wants them to attend a church of their choosing. A Christian church, that is. Because he is a chef, he likes to introduce his family to food from all over the world. Unlike his wife, he does not want his children to get married before they turn 25. There was a major disagreement in the house when Maria and her sister, who's a year younger, they refused to have a quinceañera, which is a traditional Mexican coming out party for girls when they turn 15. Instead, they opted for a sweet 16 party that was approved by their father. Her mother was so upset, and she started to say in Spanish, "Ay, Dios mío, mis hijas se han vuelto más americanas, y eso me rompe mi corazón." Ella dijo, llorando. "Oh my God, my daughters have become too American, and it breaks my heart," she said, crying. Maria has recently told her parents that everyone at school, including students and teachers, believes she is biracial, that is, African American and Caucasian, because of her tan skin and dark curly hair. She said for that reason she has stopped telling people she is Mexican. She also disclosed that on all of her documentation and asked about race, she used to put black and Latina, even though her mother wanted her to designate herself as white and Latina. Maria said that she got tired of being questioned, so now she checks the other box. Sylvia has told her daughters that her life will be easier if they stay out of the sun and flat iron their hair so they can look more Caucasian. Maria said that she looks like her dad and that it's disrespectful to his side of the family, and she considers herself to be American and does not believe that she has to choose. Now I'll give you my opinion based on my experience and how ethnicity and culture begin to matter. In a couple of years, Maria will want to belong and identify with a certain group of people. Because she looks multi-ethnic, people will always ask her, "What are you?" And if she answers American, the next question is usually, "Well, what else?" This will start to weigh in her psyche, and soon she will start to check more than one box on her applications because she doesn't want to give the impression that she's ashamed of who she is. The other thing that will influence her decision is that she's always asked to help the Latino customers that come into her place of employment because no one else on her shift speaks Spanish. Latin Americans come in all shades, and identifying as Latinx will allow her to embrace both sides of her family, which should please both of her parents. She may have a great friend group that's not concerned about ethnicity, but trouble always starts when family members or other friends of the group start to make insensitive remarks. I'm talking about all groups of people who will degrade someone for not being black enough, you're not white enough, you're not Asian enough, and boy, you are not rich enough. It is unfortunate, but comparisons always happen. Usually by age 30, most of us will have figured out who we are and how we want to live our lives. Keep this in mind. No matter your age, you're from a chosen generation, from a holy nation, that has been called out of darkness into the marvelous light. Selah. Now, the next fictional family I call my hippie parents, who live 30 miles southeast of Austin on a 4-acre plot of land. The father is named Lester and the mother is Leslie. They both go by the nickname Les, and they love the confusion it causes when they meet new people. Lester works remotely as a graphic designer, and Leslie works the land, as she calls it, and takes care of the chickens and the goats and maintains the garden. She gathers eggs and she makes goat cheese once a month. Every Saturday, the family sells their organic vegetables and the free-range eggs and the cheese that Les makes at the farmer's market. Les and Lex smoke cannabis daily, which they grow themselves, and they take shrooms when the children are gone for the weekend. They are of the belief that nothing natural can hurt you, and CBD is a cure for whatever ails you. For that reason, they rarely seek medical help for themselves or their children. They have a 7-year-old daughter named Samantha and a 6-year-old son called Joseph. They want their children to have gender-neutral nicknames or to carry on their family tradition like they do. Samantha can call herself Sam and Joseph can call himself Joe or Josephina. They believe that children should be able to choose their own gender. They buy clothes for Samantha in the girls' department and clothes for Joseph in the boys' department. However, that's where it ends. The children are allowed to wear each other's clothes and to play with their toys of their choosing that are not dependent on stereotypical gender roles. That's what they said. So one morning before school, Joseph said that he wanted to look like his sister, and Les decided to let him wear a skirt and to put a bow on his shoulder-length hair. When he got to school, all of his classmates, they started to laugh, and they pointed their fingers at him and told him he looked just like a girl. Joseph started crying, and he was taken to the school counselor. And when the counselor asked why he looked like his sister and why he had on girls' clothes, he said because he really did want to look like his sister. When the counselor called his mother, Les, and she was told to bring him appropriate clothes, she refused. The principal sent a note home informing the parents that Joseph could not return to the classroom until he was dressed appropriately. When Joseph missed the rest of the school week, the counselor called social services, and the social worker removed Joseph from the home and placed him with his maternal grandparents who live in the area. Thank God, because it takes a village to raise a child so that you don't have to carry the burden alone. During the home visit, social services informed the parents that they had to attend 8 weeks of parenting classes before Joseph would be allowed to return home. When he returned, they were appalled at his appearance. He no longer had shoulder-length hair, and he had on clothes that boys his age typically wear. He said that his grandfather told him that he was a boy and that he was not allowed to play with dolls and to wear his sister's clothes ever again. His parents reiterated that Joseph, and they told him, "You're too young to decide, honey. So while you're here at home, you can dress however you like and play with any of the toys in the house." Now, let's skip ahead 10 years. Samantha is now 17 years old and calls herself Sam. She identifies as a heterosexual female and does not believe in putting pronouns on her social media pages. She has several body piercings and changes her hair color monthly. She has her own YouTube channel and has become quite popular. She said that after she gets 100,000 subscribers, she's going to move out on her own because she thinks her parents are too liberal and too crazy even for her. Now let's talk about her brother Joseph. He is now 16 and he calls himself Joey. He considers himself non-binary and uses the pronouns they and them. He keeps his hair long, wears fingernail polish and lipstick. He plays the steel guitar and he has his own band. They play in outdoor arenas in Austin whenever the band gets hired for a gig. His dream is to get a record deal and go on tour. He gets angry when other males approach him, and he states emphatically that he is not gay but asexual and he's not attracted to anyone at this time. After an encounter like this, he will go home and sulk and smoke a joint to numb out. His parents don't mind. They actually encourage it, and they prefer that Joseph smoke weed and not drink alcohol. Early in the month, Joseph became really angry with his grandparents because they refused to take him out to dinner for his birthday until he took off that fingernail polish and the lipstick. Joy doesn't really understand his grandparents and believes they have their head in the sand. They grew up listening to rock music, and he told them that he doesn't look any different from the groups they used to idolize and still listen to. I want to give you my thoughts about Les and Les, in case you forgot. Leslie and Lester are the parents of Samantha and Joseph, who use the same nickname. What they fail to understand when raising their children is that young people need schedules and structure. In fact, they thrive on it. The other important element to include when raising children is to provide a moral code, what is right and wrong. Children get upset and confused when they are given too many choices without limits. Repetition, structure, and schedules make children happy and make them feel safe. Have you ever seen children or adults who grew up without structure? I have, and I've often commented to myself or others, what's wrong with them? They're like feral children. They always seem to be overwhelmed. They seem to be out of control. They're angry a lot. They're always taking from other people without asking. Sometimes they don't have solid relationships because they lack the necessary social skills and respect for others to develop and keep the long-term relationships. The other important factor is that all of us need to be aware of societal norms. You may not agree with all of them, but to avoid chaos and confusion, it's essential to understand what is expected at work, school, and organized sports, and what side of the road to drive on, wouldn't you say? Now I'm going to give you something else to think about and how getting off schedule affects the small things. Take your own children or grandchildren, for example. If you have ever had to travel with them, you know what I'm talking about. If you can't keep them on schedule with their meals and naps because of having to sit in a seat in a car, a plane, or a train for 3 hours or more, everyone's miserable until you get to your destination. But after they eat, they sleep, and they do other things on schedule, the next day, everyone's back in sync and the fun begins. Hallelujah. Now, teenagers can fool you for a while. They can stay up all night, then get ready for school, grab a bite, and not look tired. After 2 or more weeks of them doing this, you will notice a change in their behavior and not know why until you start investigating. I worked in a psychiatric hospital, many of them, let's say, and treatment centers as well, for several years. And unruly and rebellious teenagers turn into the nice kids you birth once they're in a structured environment that provides 3 meals and snacks per day. They schedule the school time, they have scheduled breaks, fun time, and the lights out are out between like 9:30 and 10 p.m. And of course, they can't use recreational drugs, alcohol, no vaping, or tobacco use. And no sex, of course. And many adults who grew up in homes with little nor structure expressed that they did not feel like their parents loved them or cared about them because they were allowed to do whatever they wanted. And no one stopped them from staying out all night, drinking, drugging, and having unprotected sex. By nature, children and adolescents do everything to excess if they're not stopped. Inevitably, most young people that grow up without structure end up in the justice system. They drop out of school by the 9th grade, and they end up fathering or birthing children by the time they're 16. Of course, there are many individuals who are able to escape this life once they leave home and come to their senses, and others may not because they really don't know how to and they fail. No proper foundation was ever laid. Word of wisdom. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. I don't know how old you are, but I'm a baby boomer, and so many things have changed with societal norms during my lifetime. When I was in elementary school, girls could not wear pants to school, children did not talk back to adults nor call them by their first name. You were either male or female with separate restrooms, and no one used subjective pronouns at the end of their correspondence. Societal norms change every 10 years or so, from the length of your dresses or pants to the colors available for your hair or nails, like pink, purple, blue, green, whatever. In my opinion, things have gotten worse, Everyone is on a first-name basis. I don't want my neighbor's 14-year-old son calling me by my first name. Things are too casual. Some churches allow their members to wear shorts and flip-flops, as well as some high-end restaurants, especially those that are in tourist destinations. I've seen several people go to Walmart in their pajamas, and they're not embarrassed at all. I don't get it. Now, biological males or transgender females are allowed to participate in women's sports, sharing the same locker room with their male genitalia exposed. Enough is enough. Before Roe v. Wade was overturned, a 16-year-old girl could have an abortion without her parents' consent. She was of legal age to vote or buy alcohol, but she could make a decision about ending a life without talking to her parents. How does that make sense? Now, in this era, children in elementary school are being encouraged to change genders and take hormones to facilitate the change or to delay puberty without their parents' consent. In some states, if the parents disagree, the child can be taken out of the home and placed with another family who agrees with the new norm. Now, this is a good subject for you to journal about. With everything going on in the world and with the media showing you images of things that were not acceptable 20 or more years ago, where do you stand on the issues? What patterns have you observed? Which ones do you agree with? And then, is there a conflict with your culture or religious traditions? What kind of books are in the school library, and have you looked? If not, it's a good idea to see what your children have access to. I know many of you are unhappy and you're confused because you're trying to believe the zeitgeist of the age. Deep down inside, you're not comfortable with the new normal. But you don't want to be ostracized, and you don't want to be labeled as having prejudicial beliefs. If you aren't comfortable with what society is throwing at you through film, music, and social media, then stop. Refocus. Reset that moral compass. Don't be blown away by every wind or doctrine, or by the trickery of men and the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting. Read the Testaments, the Old and the New, and believe in something greater than yourself. You cannot live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. A word of wisdom. Tolerance leads to acceptance. I'm not telling you to hate or not to be kind to other people. What I'm saying is not to let the world go to hell without fighting for what is right and wrong. Do not be silent and sit in the back of the bus. Stand in the gap for others who don't have a voice. Get up. Get out there. Attend school board meetings. Go to town hall meetings. Get to know your city council person and your state representative. The world needs you, your children need you, and God needs you. You are the light of the world. Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Well, we're coming to the end of this podcast, and in this segment, I've encouraged you to stand strong in your convictions and do not accept the new normal, especially if it conflicts with your core beliefs. Remember the Lord your God. Do not bow down or worship or serve any images of any size, shape, or form. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and the perfect will of God. I enjoyed being with you, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast as well. For your individual life coaching and consulting sessions, please DM me on Instagram at Dr. Julia Floyd. And please follow me on YouTube and Facebook. The links are in the description box. Before you go, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review, because we're all in this together. And I'll see you next time on Harmonious Living with Dr. Julia. Ciao.